Are you tired of worrying about your 2023 farm profits? Take control of your investments and maximize your returns. Let Advanced Trading help you create a marketing strategy to protect your investment and reduce market risk. For over 40 years, Advanced Trading's non-predictive approach has helped farmers secure and extend profits regardless of market volatility. Our team is positioned to help you make the most of 2023. You never stop working, and neither do we.
Good morning. My name is Drew Moore. I've got Brian Basting, our economist, here in the studio, as well as Nathan Mangold. And today we're going to hash out the June USDA WASDE report. As of a few minutes ago, July corn's down 8, D's corn down 7, July beans up 18, November beans up 8, KC wheat down 14, with Chicago wheat only down 2. So kind of something for everybody, I guess, today. But Brian, first question to you. What did the corn and wheat side of the ledger have to say today?
Well, let's start out on the corn side, Drew. We're looking at no change in the USDA projected yield acreage for 2023 corn. That's not that surprising. Sure. We've still got quite a bit of the growing season yet to go. USDA typically takes that conservative stance, so no change on the new crop balance sheet, as a matter of fact. Sure. The exception, Drew, is the old crop balance sheet. USDA reduced exports of corn for old crop by 50 million bushel compared to last month. Here's something that may have slipped under the radar. The focus at the moment, Drew, is on South America, and justifiably so. Right. But USDA today increased exports from Ukraine by 1.5 million tons. That's about 60 million bushel. Mm-hmm. So you could argue that most of that reduction potentially today in that balance sheet for old crop corn was more exports competition from Ukraine. So just a reminder out there to the viewers to get control from a risk management standpoint of any remaining old crop corn, because the old crop balance sheet is feeling a little heavier at the moment. And I know Nathan may refer to this in a bit, but the basis levels continue to feel heavy at the moment too in many areas. So sure. Just a reminder to the viewers, risk management, get control of any remaining old crop corn bushels. Looking at the wheat side of the ledger, I would say, Drew, there's very little surprises. The HRW crop got slightly bigger. Mm-hmm. We know that the viewers out there are producing out in Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, a very, very poor crop this year. But USDA did nudge those yields up a bit, and that's weighing on the KC market, as you highlighted a moment ago. Sure. Harvest is starting out there too, so that maybe it's not, I wouldn't say it's harvest pressure by any means, but just psychologically, the fact that harvest is starting. Right. On the export side, Drew, I believe it's a 51-year low we've got for all wheat exports for new crop. Competition today highlighted was Russia is up 1 million tons for 23-24 exports, mm-hmm. Ukraine up 500,000 tons, and Europe up 500,000 tons. So a silver lining, a tiny silver lining, Drew, as I wrap up. China imports were boosted 1.5 million tons today. A lot of rain in China may be impacting the quality of their wheat. May have to import a bit more, but they certainly will have different origins to choose from. Sure.
Good stuff. Thank you, Brian. Nathan, over to you. What did the USDA say on the soy complex side of the equation for the U.S.?
Yeah, so the soybean balance sheet, although it's very tight, it's getting a little looser. The USDA lowered exports 15 million bushels. Advanced Trading Research is still expecting that to move about another 65 million bushels lower on exports. Okay. So we've got this big South American crop that's trying to hit the market. Sure. And of course, with a record crop down there, they're having logistical issues to some degree. So we have seen the U.S. catch a little export business over the last week or so. We've seen some sales show up to Europe. This morning we saw another couple of boats get traded to unknown, I believe. Mm-hmm. Right. But so potentially Europe as well. This is what we think is August shipment. So we're getting a chance to see a little bit more exports, but in general, we think exports could continue to probably drop some on beans. That's just natural with a huge South American crop. We did see, just looking at the meal balance sheet, mm-hmm. Domestic meal usage down 100, exports up 200. That, again, is related to the drought that experienced in Argentina. Right. And so we continue to see solid export sales on meal week over week. We should see nice meal export sales for the balance of the crop year. That's We also got probably a little bit of pressure from DDGs in the domestic market competing against that soy meal. Yeah.
Makes sense. No, thank you. So putting together what you had noted and what Brian had said, and digesting a million different numbers over the last 25 minutes. What's your outlook now, post USDA report on corn and soybean spreads here moving forward, and as we approach first notice day versus the July contract month?
Yeah. So I think we got a holiday in here, and then first notice day is the 30th, Friday the 30th. So I believe we have something like 14 or 15 trading days between now and the 30th.
Yep.
So the job of the market, as we see these basis values that have been very elevated, is to bring those basis values down as we see convergence happen versus the July. And as Brian noted, we've seen some heaviness in the corn basis recently. But we got to remember, the Southwest market, although we've seen basis weaken, we've been pulling a lot of bushels out of Illinois, away from the Illinois River, the delivery system.
Yep.
We still have decent exports, or I should say shipments today. Yes, Brazil's going to come online. It looks like a potential record crop out of Brazil. We got Brazil corn at 132, which is up 2 million tons. That'll be a new record for Brazil. And that is going to all hit the market starting sometime in July. But until then, the U.S. is still going to be exporting. Remember, Argentina's got that drought, so their exports are down.
Sure.
We have uncertainty about Ukraine, so if you want to know you're going to get your bushels and not worry about a Black Sea corridor issue that potentially happened with the politics happening across the pond,
Right.
you might buy U.S. But for the short term here, probably another 3 to 4 weeks, U.S. will continue to have strong shipments. And that Southwest drought that we experienced this last year, Kansas, western Nebraska, Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas, all of that has pushed or pulled demand out of Illinois to solve that problem. Both UP, BN, shuttle origins being traded into those destinations.
Sure.
So I guess big picture on spreads, from a merchandiser's perspective, advanced trading still favors leaving long futures in the July versus basis short positions.
Makes sense. Thank you for that. Brian, what's the scoop down in South America? Nathan mentioned, the safrinha corn crop at a 132. Certainly, I've heard some rumblings higher than that. The focus has kind of seemed to shift back to the U.S. weather, of course, with the hot and dry conditions we have experienced. Does some of the production issues in South America put a cap on prices moving forward? And what are your thoughts here?
No, Nathan did a terrific job, Drew, of highlighting the divergence that we're seeing down in South America, because as he highlighted a moment ago, 132 million tons is a record crop in Brazil.
Right.
And as Nathan said, that crop is going to start to work its way into the pipeline, the world pipeline, if you will, probably around that mid-July period. And you could certainly make a case that it'll be for the remainder of the calendar year, Drew.
Right.
The volume of that is unprecedented in terms of export competition. So that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin, as Nathan highlighted, we do have a smaller Argentina bean crop and a smaller Argentina corn crop. The corn crop has reduced 2 million tons today in Argentina. So basically it was kind of a wash between a 2 million ton increase in Brazil, 2 million ton reduction in Argentina.
Sure.
Same for exports, 2 million higher in Brazil, 2 million lower in Argentina. But the bottom line there, Drew, is that I'd add one more thing in addition to South America. Today the USDA also bumped up new crop exports from Ukraine, a bit surprising, by 2.5 million tons. Now it's still lower than this year. When I say this year, the old crop year. Old crop year now is unchanged from a year ago, 27 million tons. But next year was higher by 2.5 million. It is only 19 million for next year. And it's certainly an unknown what's going to happen with that Ukraine crop that they're planting or just finished planting right now. Highlight that to the viewers today. That's a big unknown. We don't know if that crop will ever get harvested. Maybe it's going to be bigger, maybe we don't know. But what we do know, as you highlighted at the beginning, though, in South America, that's going to provide, and Nathan highlighted it too a moment ago, a lot of competition for the U.S. The balance of the year here, probably starting in mid to late July. So there's a window here of opportunity, and Nathan did a terrific job of highlighting that window. maybe a 6 to 8 week window here where U.S. will be the key
Sure.
supplier of
Sure.
corn. But boy, that's going to change, Drew, if we get into that late July, particularly August time period.
Sure, sure. Thank you for that, Brian. Touching on wheat a little bit more, I mean, the Black Sea conflicts are certainly ever present, even in large-scale events like we've seen earlier this week. What is your outlook, I guess, moving forward, both domestically and globally for wheat classes?
Probably the best way to summarize the wheat situation for the U.S., Drew, is we're going to see the definition potentially, at least to start the crop year, of the U.S. being the residual supplier
Sure.
to the world. When we have Russia's exports today were increased by new crop, as I mentioned a moment ago, by 1 million tons.
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine up 500,000 tons, Europe up 500,000. It's 725 million bushels for all wheat exports from the U.S. I believe that's a 51-year low. Here's a wild card, though, I remind the viewers, Drew, at this point. Australia, we're in the midst of an El Nino weather pattern worldwide, and historically El Nino is highly correlated with below trend yields in Australia. And it is starting to dry out there a fair amount in Australia. So the next 90 days, I'd say, in Australia from now to the 1st of September will be very critical to watch that. If you do take the Australia yields down, they had tremendous crops the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
If you take that down, that may open up a little bit of a window for U.S. exports, but for the time being, Drew, we're looking at ample supply here in the U.S. of soft wheat, a much lower than expected, unfortunately, hard red crop,
Right.
a little higher the day from USDA. But point being is our carryout is kind of stable, maybe a little bit declining here in the U.S., but the world supplies at the moment, Drew, are ample. When you look at even excluding China, which is obviously looking at a tremendous supply of wheat, even though it's not as high quality. Bottom line, we are the residual supplier of wheat to the world right now, Drew. Wheat is searching for demand. Where it could maybe find demand is on the feed side.
Sure.
But right now, at the moment, the wheat-corn spread does not favor aggressive wheat feeding.
Right.
They're kind of both rushing to the bottom here, if you will. But that's something to keep in mind, particularly for soft wheat in the southeast.
Sure. Thank you, Brian. Nathan, last question for you before we wrap it up. Do you have any other inventory statements to make, I guess, or marketing ideas for our viewers?
Yeah, so, I mean, big picture of the report was kind of benign. There was nothing that jumped out that was this, I think, alarming to that the research analysts weren't already expecting. So
Sure.
Going into Sunday night, we're going to reevaluate where did the rain fall over the weekend, and then we have another potential chance of moisture, I think, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're battling the Euro versus GFS models again. One's
Right.
wetter versus drier. So Sunday night into Monday could be pretty volatile depending on, again, what we actually saw for precip and then what that short-term forecast is. Is this weather pattern actually changing? All things that I have no idea if that's the case. But what I do know is the basis, or I should say the futures market from July to Dec is roughly 80 cents. July is 80 cents higher than December futures. So at 80 cents difference, it's a clear signal to me as a producer, sell the cash and buy a call.
Right.
Because again, I can't predict if it's going to rain or not rain in the right places.
Sure.
And are we going to see something close to that trend line yield? Because trend line yields on that corn crop, I mean, if we're anything around a 180, and as Brian alluded to on the poor exports, we're seeing out of the U.S., or that we're expecting to see going into the fourth quarter this year, and then into the first quarter of next year, it's not a rosy demand picture. So new crop corn could be way overvalued if we end up starting to talk about a potential trendline corn yield that's in that 178 to 180. Yes, USDA is at 181.5. So anything close to that in Dec corn is probably 75 cents overvalued.
Sure.
So hit the easy button, take care of the old crop. We know the markets are telling us to clean that up and then start to think about how can I protect the what if we do see normal yields on new crop. From a merchandising perspective, I would just mention in about 10 days or so, we're going to start to see milo harvest in the coastal bend area of Texas. That's at Corpus Christi down towards the border of Mexico. So we're already starting to see harvest roll. By mid-July, that's central Texas is expected to start corn harvest. And we're expected to see a potential record crop in that part of the world. And it just has its ripple effects. That'll shut off demand being sold into there today. That part of the world, because of how much corn it's looking like they will produce, is going to have to find an outlet above and beyond their local demand for some of that supply, whether that's trying to push bushels into a panhandle of Texas, into the eastern, more of that Delta poultry market, maybe into the Texas Gulf where we don't have an export program.
Right.
So you can kind of paint that picture. And all that's going to start happening July, August. So that's what the job of the market is to start bringing these old crop cash values down towards new crop eventually. And that Central Texas crop is going to be the first catalyst of that.
Sure. Very good. Very good. Thank you guys both today. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us and have a great day.